Hello and welcome to today's video. We're talking about Carl Jung that shaped the field of psychology by blending scientific inquiry with the exploration of spiritual, cultural, and symbolic dimensions of the human experience. And it provides this framework for understanding the complexity of human behavior, of human identity, and of human relationships. At the very heart of Carl Jung's work lies the belief that human beings are not merely shaped by personal experience or genetic predispositions, but also deeply connected to universal patterns, archetypes, and that reside in the collective unconscious. This perspective, it allows us to move beyond the individual pathology and view personal struggles as a part of a larger shared human journey. And that's something that brings that connections between each other. Carl Gustav Jung was born on July 26, 1875 in Switzerland into a deeply religious family. His dad, he was Protestant, and his mother came from a lineage of theologians. However, this man's relationship with his religion was a little bit complicated, and he found his father's rigid faith unsatisfying, and it was unsatisfying, and he yearned for something more expansive and more of understanding that spiritual journey. And so we begin by talking about his childhood, and it was marked with introspection and vivid dreams, which later on he described as this formative experience that introduced him to what he called, or what is known as, the unconscious. These early encounters with his inner world, it really just laid the groundwork for his theories, and it really just brought together the collective unconscious and the archetypes. He received his education from the University of Basel, where he studied medicine, psychiatry, and he deepened his interest in the human mind. A man that is just all about knowledge and all about going deeper and deeper into the human psyche, into the human mind. Now let's move on to details of Carl Jung's major theory. And so Carl Jung's the significant contribution to psychology is this concept of this something called the collective unconscious. And here he defines as the universal reservoir of shared experiences, instincts, and archetypes. This is quite a bit different from Freud's personal unconscious, and that one is rooted as individual experience. The collective unconscious actually is shared across all of humanity, and it transcends culture and it transcends time. And it's something very interesting because he argues that his collective layer of the psyche manifests through something called archetypes. These are universal symbols like heroes, shadow, the wise old man, which appears in myths, dreams, and cultural narratives worldwide, and not just in a particular culture at a particular time. It's kind of all over the place. The process of individuation is central to Jung's work. And this idea, it refers to this lifelong journey of integration of the conscious and the unconscious aspect of the psyche to achieve a balance of authentic self. This man, he believed that individuation is essential for mental health and personal growth, and that allows individuals to move beyond the societal explanation or expectations, that we have in our day-to-day lives, and to embrace their true selves. And he also introduced the concept of psychological types, which form the basis of modern personalities. Things like Myers-Briggs types, indicators. So these are the tests that so many people take and so many people know, and they are influenced by this man. And so, by distinguishing between introversion and extroversion, and identifying the four cognitive functions, thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition, this man provided the framework for understanding individual differences in perception and decision making. And as Samuel notes in 1985, which you will see in the reference portion of our presentation. These series have had a profound impact on psychotherapy, education, and organizational psychology. Continuing on with the impact on mental health, Jungian therapy has a transformative impact on mental health. It really just offers tools for self awareness, for emotional healing, and for personal growth. And so, by exploring this unconscious through dream analysis, this type of therapy, it helps clients uncover hidden conflicts, it helps them uncover hidden desires and fears. Dreams, according to Jung, are messages from the unconscious. They're rich with archetypes imagery that can guide individuals towards greater understanding and balance. And the concept of shadow work, it derived from Jung's archetype of the shadow. And it's particularly valuable in addressing psychological imbalances. And so when you talk about the shadow, it represents the repressed aspect of the self. And it often manifests in anxieties, anger, and self-sabotaging behavior. So by confronting and integrating these aspects, what we can do as individuals, we can achieve a greater emotional resilience and self-acceptance, which is something very beautiful to do. And so, continuing on, Jung emphasizes that individuation aligns with modern therapeutic goals. And so, emphasizing personal authenticity and growth, something that we do on currently. And this approach is especially relevant for addressing existential crisis, midlife transitions, and relationship challenges. I'm going to give you an example. In a relational context, integrating the anima and the animus archetypes can help individuals balance emotional connections and independence, fostering healthier relationship. And that comes from Singer in 1994 research. And we continue with this, and we're going to look at cultural presentation. What are the impacts on culture? And so, his theories, they resonate across cultures. They emphasize the universality of the human experience through a concept of archetypes, which we talked about earlier. And his engagement with Eastern philosophies, it further broadens the cultural relevance from his theories. So you got things like that are influenced by Taoism, by Buddhism, and Hinduism. And he explores the symbols like Mandala, which he interpreted as representation of the self, and the individuation process. And so his work, it also invites us to reflect on cultural narrative and their influence on individual identity. And by recognizing that the universal theme underlining cultural differences, we can actually foster greater empathy and understanding in an increasingly interconnected world, that there are so many things that actually connect us rather than dividing us. Next up, we have the theoretical systematic bias. Here we talk about how Carl Jung's theories have significantly influenced psychology, and they are not without criticism. So this man is pretty cool, but there are critics out there because we talk about the concern with reliance on mysticism and spiritual symbolism, and he argues, which and to some degree, some would argue that it distracts from the scientific rigor of his work. An example of that would be the collective unconscious and the archetypes, because they lack empirical evidence, and that is making it difficult to actually validate in clinical or experimental setting. And that's in generally speaking, when we talk about scientific process, it's actually a pretty important part of that scientific product. Another argument that we have is gender biases. So in Jung's archetype, and so you have the animus and the anima, and they represent the masculine and the feminine aspect of the psyche, and they have been criticized for reinforcing traditional and binary view of gender. And then the next thing that is there, we have Jung's work that also reflects a degree of Eurocentrism, which is focused on the non-Western culture, it focuses on the Western culture and kind of leaves away the non-Western cultures Some of the ethical issues that we find is that in that time, at the time of Jung's studies, there wasn't a clear ethical guideline during that time. And so when we talk about dream analysis, which is part and the cornerstone of Jungian therapy, it relies heavily on the subjective interpretation of the therapist without clear guidelines. And without that clear guidelines, there's a risk of projecting the therapist bias into or onto the clients. Another ethical concern is this misrepresentation of archetypes that can really just lead to stigmatizing certain parts if not handled with a lot of care. Moving on to personal summary, you guys, this is the fun part. When we talk about Carl Jung's theory, it really deeply resonates with both personal and professional practices. And for me, I'm working on a Christian dating project, and that Christian dating project, it focuses on providing resources for individuals that are navigating the dating stages of their lives. And Jung's theory offer a transformative tool. So, for example, understanding archetypes like the lover of the persona or the persona, sorry, can really help individuals identify the role they play in the relationship and move towards authentic connections. And that's the point of the project I am working on. And that's where it connects to the personal practices as well. And so Jung's emphasis on the self-awareness, it really it helps align perfectly with the project's goals that we have, and it fosters growth and clarity in these relationships. And then finally, what I do want to tell you is that Carl Jung's theories have directly and practically applications with the project that I'm working on, which we've called Bitcoin. And that is an often used word in the culture that I am from. And this project, it helps individuals, again, in their dating parts of their life. And so individuals who have over identified with persona archetypes may prioritize external appearances, and that leads to a shallow connection. So, by helping clients explore their shadow, we can encourage them to comfort hidden fears or to confront hidden fears and have that comfort within themselves and move on from these insecurities that are bringing them towards destruction and bringing them down. That is it, my friends, for today. You can take a look at these citations and where we found everything that we have. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I'll be with you in the next video. Bye for now.